implore the men in the world who have women that they say they care about, daughters that they are raising, that this is their issue too. I mean, for men to sit on their hands over this issue and trade out women's health for a tax break or whatever it is a sad statement about that man's level of value of the women in their life.
We're talking about how expensive it was to live in the White House. Go for it.
It's expensive to live in the White House.
Yeah.
As many people don't know. I mean, much is not covered. You're paying for every bit of food that you eat. You know, you're not paying for housing and the staff in it, but everything, even travel. If you're not traveling with the president, if your kids are coming on a Bright Star, which is the First Lady's plane, we had to pay for their travel to be on the plane.
Michelle Obama walked in with her usual aura of untouchable fame, but on live TV, Kirk and Patrick Bet-David brought the thunder. With sharp wit and cold facts, they tore through the polished image and exposed the contradictions hiding behind the smiles and speeches. It was not a debate. It was a full-blown reality check. The moment was loud, unapologetic, and impossible to ignore. By the time they were done, even her fan base had to blink twice.
Oh yes, no, she's at her complaining quotient, but I guess she's talking about abortion there as if like, you know, women's health. But let me just be clear: not a single Trump voting male in the world is ever going to be won over by complaining Michelle Obama. Just to make she looks.
Why would you ever post this picture? No, people were, and I'm actually not being funny. They were asking Barack, why would you ever post this picture? What part of Michelle's picture? Barack looks great. That is not a...
Can you close up on her, Rob?
Actually don't. But can you zoom out a little bit? Not for bad reasons. It's just she doesn't look good in that picture. Yeah. Sometimes you don't look good. So guess what you do when sometimes you don't look good? You ask and you say, hey, babe, you okay if I post this picture? No, use this.
Kirk kicked it off with the precision of a man who had been waiting for this roast since the first time he heard the phrase becoming. He did not even break a sweat. He went straight for the ideological jugular with commentary that never needed to raise its voice. He simply laid out the record and let it implode under its own bloated self-importance.
Push through it. And one side note on Michelle Obama, can we just note how overrated she is? And like all the hype around Michelle Obama, she's gonna run for office, and she's just, I don't want to get into the aesthetics of all of it, but the presentation of her podcast is terrible.
I've never been in the Michelle Obama's running for president campaign.
Let me ask you a question.
I don't get it.
Let me ask you a question. How much of becoming a president on the Democratic side, hear me out, how much of being a president on the Democratic side do you think is you getting picked, or are you saying, I'm going to be a president? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, how much of it do you think is...
If you enjoy this video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. Michelle Obama, he said, was less of a former First Lady and more of a full-time influencer with a part-time commitment to accountability. Somewhere between the Netflix deals and the book tours, she forgot that Americans remember real things, not just camera angles and filtered empowerment speeches.
Recently, I have mourned the dimming of that hope, and maybe you've experienced the same feelings, that deep pit in my stomach, a palpable sense of dread about the future.
It's so dark. And now she's saying, now I have hope because of Kamala Harris. The apocalyptic undertones of the Democrat Party is dramatic. This is their identity. This is their purpose.
Charlie's signature move is that he never punches up or down. He just punches where the nonsense lives. And Michelle's entire brand is a mansion built on narrative gymnastics. He set the stage by recounting how the woman who claimed to be apolitical had her fingerprints on every single culture war grenade since 2009.
If all of a sudden the Dems did flip in August and they put a Newsom, Michelle combination, do you know what mainstream media would do with that? CNN, what Jimmy Fallon, Colbert, all these podcasts, the Oprah Winfrey, the NBA, LeBron, do you know what Taylor Swift, do you know what these guys would be doing? It would be bonkers. By the way, if it is Michelle and Newsom, it's going to be it.
It is as if she is allergic to subtlety. She could write a children's book about vegetables and still sneak in a jab about voter suppression. Kirk made that clear. This was not about disagreeing with her policies. It was about exposing the calculated performance art masquerading as genuine concern. Then came the fun part. Charlie took apart her carefully curated persona like a mismatched IKEA bookshelf. The public image of Michelle is all about relatability. She dances, wears sneakers, and shows up on cooking shows. But Charlie pointed out the contradiction in trying to be both Oprah and a revolutionary. He said if Michelle truly represented the oppressed, she would not be sipping imported teas on a $60,000 couch while telling working-class Americans that they do not dream big enough. The disconnection is so wide it has its own zip code. Charlie did not stop at the surface. He drilled into the psychology behind the brand. He explained how Michelle's rise to pop culture sainthood was a masterpiece of marketing, not a tribute to courage or intellect.
Reasons, it's just she doesn't look good in that picture. Sometimes you don't look good. So guess what you do when sometimes you don't look good? You ask and you say, hey babe, you okay if I post this picture? No, use this one, use that one, use this one. So I don't even know why he posted the picture. You know, he has his own reasons for posting a picture. So a lot of people said, why are you even doing this? It's not cool for you to post a picture like.
He said the media treats Michelle the way teenagers treat their favorite boy band, with wild irrational loyalty and no sense of objectivity. You could not question her or fact-check her, and if you did, you were branded as sexist or racist or worse. Charlie did not just roast Michelle. He served her brand on a spit with a side of elite hypocrisy. Her memoir was not a glimpse into her soul. It was a consultant-approved product meant to stir emotion without inviting scrutiny. Kirk said she was not relatable. She was rehearsed. There is a big difference between a role model and a role player, and Michelle landed firmly in the latter. According to him, every tearful interview, every soundbite about struggle, every passive-aggressive swipe at America was carefully engineered. And just when you thought he was done, he dropped the hammer. He brought up her infamous claim that she was not proud of her country until a certain political moment. Kirk unpacked that statement like a bomb technician.
Time and she's complaining, or again, I'm not trying to look at people's looks, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying the whole aura of it, to use a Gen Z term, is terrible. It's negative. It's just kind of her lamenting, and then she's obviously, there's problems with her daughters and all that. I don't want to get into that, but we built up on the right. Michelle Obama is going to be the hardest person ever to run against, and her book sold so many copies. And
because what kind of person rises to the highest levels of power reaps every benefit of freedom and still finds it morally satisfying to shame the very system that made it possible? Kirk pointed out that Michelle's version of America is a hologram, an imagined dystopia that somehow never affects her private jet schedule. When Patrick Bet-David took the stage, the vibe shifted entirely. Patrick is not a political sniper. He is a cultural demolition crew. He tore through Michelle's glitzy packaging like a contractor spotting termites in a Beverly Hills mansion. Where Charlie was surgical, Patrick was cinematic. You could hear the popcorn popping as he smirked and shrugged, as if to say, you already know, but let's say it out loud. Patrick's signature move is the strategic pause. He lulls you into comfort, then drops a punchline that echoes in the rafters. He started by asking why the media treats Michelle like she is untouchable. Then he touched every sacred cow grazing in her rhetorical field. He said Michelle does not talk to inspire. She talks to guilt trip.
First of all, just like the embedded kind of just implied chauvinism that all of our relationships in the Trump world are like, we tell our wives exactly what to do. It's like, okay, no, we all have agency, okay? Secondly, I just have to comment on this. She's really lost a step. Just embedded in her language is like, she's really...
He mocked the idea that Michelle Obama is the moral conscience of the nation. According to Patrick, if your version of morality involves lecturing citizens while cashing checks from the corporations you claim to oppose, then maybe you are not the lighthouse of virtue you think you are. He questioned how someone could spend a decade surrounded by power and still walk away claiming victimhood. He imitated her dramatic pauses, her furrowed brow, and her performative concern. This roast did not need jokes. The absurdity sold itself. He said listening to Michelle talk about struggle is like watching a billionaire complain about ATM fees. It does not land. It does not resonate. It does not make sense. But the media claps anyway because questioning Michelle is like challenging gravity. It is not allowed in polite society.
More energy and more intensity. It's like this Michelle Obama just looks broken. She's kind of doing the wine mom thing, and she's just kind of like, I'm just kind of meandering through life. Anyway, I'm not upset about
populated
it.
Like every 30 seconds with, what about me? No one asks about
totally,
me.
Exactly. Or and Megan, I know you'll take this in good stride, but she's like, we black women need to complain more. Yeah, that's the problem.
Patrick then zoomed in on the obsession the establishment has with turning Michelle into political royalty. He said it is not about her achievements. It is about fitting her into a pre-written script. Michelle Obama is not admired. She is projected. People do not see her. They see what they want her to represent. That makes her the perfect mascot for a movement built on illusion. Like a TED Talk on empathy written by a PR firm. No intellectual rigor, just buzzwords that trigger applause. And millions lap it up like gospel. But Patrick challenged the crowd to go deeper. He said if you look past the applause, you will find a woman who never risked anything. Not her status, not her income, not her comfort. All she ever gambled was other people's trust.
Michelle Obama says, until recently, I've mourned the dimming of that hope. And maybe you've experienced the same feelings. Is that a pit in my stomach? A palpable sense of dread about the future? Now, look, Michelle Obama has well-documented anxiety problems. And it's very interesting. When they are not in control of political power, they get anxiety. And being at the DNC, this for them is church. For them, this was a...
He even joked that Michelle's activism has all the danger of a scented candle. She tells people to rise up, but only if it does not interfere with brunch. Her revolution fits in a gift bag with a signed book and a podcast link. It is activism for the clean-handed. Change brought by corporate sponsors and emotional cues. Patrick said Michelle does not use traditional power. She rules the emotional high ground. She does not debate, she declares. She does not argue, she emotes. If you disagree, you are not wrong, you are heartless. It is a brilliant trick, he said, but it is still a trick. Once you see it, you cannot unsee it. It is not leadership. It is theater. A Broadway show in political disguise.
You really have to wonder. In fact, if we would have said 3 weeks ago, Blake, if we would have said that Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson were affirmative action picks, we would have been called the racist. But now they're coming out and they're saying it for us. They're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. And we know you do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken.
He ended with a rhetorical Molotov cocktail. Patrick said the biggest irony is that Michelle Obama, the self-proclaimed outsider, has never lived like one. She is the establishment. She is the system. She is what every activist claims to fight. Because when the most powerful, wealthy, and celebrated woman in America insists she is still a victim, you have to wonder what counts as winning. That was the point Kirk and Patrick hammered. Michelle's story only works if everyone agrees to suspend disbelief. It only functions if nobody asks real questions. But these two were not interested in fantasy. They pulled back the curtain and revealed the gears. What they found was an illusion powered more by emotion than truth, more by performance than principle.
So, what are you thinking when you're giving this message? Like, what are you thinking in your mind? Because let's do data. Rob, can you type in Obama's net worth in 2007? What was Obama in 2007? 1.2 million, 1.3 million. Okay, so their net worth is, let's write this down. This is pre-White House. Their collective net worth was 1.3 million. Can you go to where their net worth was in 2016 when they're done being presidents? Okay, 2016. So their net worth, as expensive as it was, they went from being 1.3 million to 12.2 million.
Charlie Kirk went after the ideological gaps. Patrick Bet-David shredded the cultural mythology. Together, they dismantled Michelle Obama's persona. Not with malice, but with honesty. Because someone had to say the obvious. Not everyone who smiles for cameras and speaks in buzzwords is a hero. Some are just good at branding. When the cameras shut off, what remains is the truth. And the truth is still unraveling. This was not just a roast. It was a beginning. Michelle still stands on the red carpet under the spotlight. But now the audience is skeptical. The illusion has cracked. The script is falling apart. And just when it seemed over, Patrick leaned back and threw one last grenade. He asked why Michelle, if so committed to the downtrodden, always appears behind velvet ropes in elite zip codes delivering pre-packaged wisdom to bobblehead crowds. He joked that her outreach looked more like brand expansion. Meanwhile, Charlie reminded everyone that the strongest form of deception is not a lie. It is a half-truth wrapped in applause. Not just Michelle's myth, but the entire machine that props her up.